Do you make a product yourself? Do you do craft shows, farm markets? Do you have a brick and mortar store? Do you sell online? Have you ever wondered, how do you price your products for sale? How do you price them so that they'll move but you still make a profit? Hang tight, we'll talk about it. Hey guys, John Connolly from UncleJohnSoap.com. I've had a couple people ask me to discuss how to price your products if you happen to make a product like this shave soap we make here. Anything, soaps, jewelry, things like that. And figured we'd talk about that for a minute. So I, of course, am a soap maker. That's my main focus. I make some other odds and ends here and there, but my main business is making soap. How do you price your products? Well, for me, when I was starting out, the first thing I learned is I've got to make some money on it. I can't make stuff for free and expect to get anywhere with it. Even if it's a hobby, you still have to charge something to be able to keep doing the hobby that you like, if you want it to pay for itself. So what I started out doing was, at a bare minimum, you want to take whatever your cost for your product is and double it. That's the rock bottom minimum. And that's if you want to be able to make some money to keep your hobby going, to be able to have gas to go to the little shows and things like that. Next step is when you are making products and you want to make a living, even if it's a part-time living, there's some basic formulas. I don't like to make it too complicated. There's no need to make it too complicated. And it's fairly common practice. So for me, I take the cost of whatever product I'm making and I will double it for wholesale. So if this product costs me $1 to make, I will sell it for $2 wholesale. That means I'll sell it to somebody else to sell in their store or on their website, and they can mark it up from there. For retail, in my own shop or my website, if this costs me $1 to make, I will sell it for $4. So you see, 4 times. So that leaves you room for your wholesale market, and then you double that for your retail, or they can double the wholesale price for them to sell retail. It really doesn't have to be any more complicated than that if you're making things. I hear people talk about, having to cover your time, the cost for your time and things like that. You really can't charge for time in a business where you produce things. I don't want to say mass producing, because we're not really producing that much, but if I'm producing the same thing over and over and over again, I'm not going to try to charge for my time. A, it's almost impossible for me to get an accurate count, and B, if I could get an accurate count on my time and figure that into the cost, this stuff would be too expensive. It just wouldn't sell. So a basic formula is, what does it cost you? What's the cost of your container? What's the cost for your labeling? Are you buying the labels? Are you making the labels? What does it cost you? And I get a rough estimate on ink. I print my labels. So what does it cost me to print that label, plus the cost of the 2 labels themselves? It's easy so far. The materials. This is shave soap. So a batch of soap, I know how many ounces by weight that a batch makes. I know how many ounces of each type of oil that I use in here, how many ounces of water and lye and all that stuff, plus fragrance. Break it down. What is a full bottle? Like I do 1 pound bottles of fragrance. If I break that down into batch sizes, and the same thing with my olive oil and everything else that I'm using, which this doesn't have olive oil, but I'm just throwing it out there. What does everything cost by the ounce? Once I get all that figured out, I can figure out how much is in each jar. And that tells me the cost of what I'm filling it with, plus the cost of the jar, plus the cost of labels. That is my cost once I add all that up. That's what it physically costs me to do all this. You can figure in electric a little bit, but I tend to treat that as more of an overall expense for the shop. Lighting, heating and air conditioning, things like that. So don't get too picky with breaking that stuff down. If you want to throw an extra 10% on your cost just to cover odds and ends, that's fine. But again, don't make it too complicated. So again, if my total cost after I break everything down is $1 to produce this jar, and I'm selling wholesale to another person that wants to retail it out of their shop, I'm going to charge them $2, double my cost. If I'm going to sell it retail in my store or on my website, I'm going to double that cost, so $4 retail. By the way, this is way more expensive than that, but anyway. Same thing with if you're buying things to resell. That formula is a little more flexible. This is a microphone. We don't sell microphones here. But if I was going to, and I bought microphones to resell to people at a retail price point, what I would do, let's say this microphone costs me, if I buy a bunch of them wholesale, $10 a piece, okay? There's two things that I would do. One, I would figure out what everybody else is charging for them. What are they charging for these microphones? And then that would give me a baseline to start with. The second thing is I would figure out what I paid, obviously, and subtract that, and that's what I would be bringing in. Is it worth my time to have a bunch of these sitting on the shelf at that price, or is it too much for my area, my market? Can they get it cheaper online? So essentially, for anything that I buy to resell, my minimum that I would sell it for out of my store or my website is double. So if something costs me $1, I charge $2. Sometimes I do a 3 times markup. So if it costs me $1, I may charge $3 for it. Some of that is convenience. How much shelf space does it eat up? How much does everybody else sell it for retail? So, and I find a happy medium, and that works for me. There's no real science to it. Sometimes you just have to feel your way through it. And if a product doesn't move, it's either a product that people aren't interested in, or they can get cheaper somewhere else and they've figured that out and they're not going to buy from you. So that's basically it in a nutshell. It's not difficult, but it is going to take you some time to sit down and do some math, especially when you produce things that are like bath soaps that are, there's some liquid, there's some solid oils, there's the lye chemicals, things like that, packaging, and you have to break that down. I make my own labels. The colored paper that wraps around the bar this way is printer paper. I can figure out down to one sheet what that one sheet of paper costs me. Then I can figure out how many of these strips I get out of each sheet, break it down even further, so that I know that this piece of paper right here going around this bar of soap costs me, 2 cents, let's say. I don't remember off the top of my head because it's been a while since we figured it out. Then the band that goes this way is cardstock. What does cardstock cost me for one sheet? I can get 3 of these bands out of one sheet of cardstock. What that breaks down to, again, maybe 8 cents for this strip of cardstock. Then, what does it cost me in ink to print on this? Again, that's kind of hard to break down. I print off the same printer for everything. Invoices, receipts, packing slips, labels. So I do a round number, if it costs me a penny to print on it, I'll just throw that in there. Then I take that cost and add it to the cost of the bar soap. Again, I explained to you a minute ago that you have to weigh out all your oils, figure out if it's a jug of olive oil, what does that jug cost? How many ounces are in that jug by weight? You have to figure out the weight because everything in soap making is weight. Then figure out how many ounces you used in a batch of soap. For me, maybe a log of bath soap is 40 ounces of olive oil. Okay, what does each ounce of olive oil cost me? That's what it cost me for that batch for olive oil. Then break it down. It's just going to take some time. Like I said, it's not difficult, but it is going to take some time to sit down and figure it all out. Once you figured it out once, and as long as the prices don't fluctuate too bad, you can keep adjusting or set your prices just a touch higher so that you're covered for a while, because a lot of oils fluctuate. They're basically a commodity. They're going to go up and down just like gasoline would. So you kind of got to find a ballpark price and stick with it for a while. If you keep raising and lowering your prices, you're going to drive customers nuts and they'll never come back. So, all right, guys, I hope that was helpful. If you need anything else, feel free to shoot me a comment down below. You can email me at unclejohnsoap.com. If you found this video useful in any way, please like down below and subscribe. And that way you're sure to catch any of the new videos coming out. All right, guys.